What is up, guys? It is Joe back in talking about the Kansas State Wildcats, and I know the background's different. I'm up in Minnesota, so that's why I'm not in the normal studio. It is what it is. I apologize for taking the show on the road, but nevertheless, the show goes on, especially when you're talking about recruiting on the football side of things. You've got a huge news coming through K-State. Nobody's committed yet. I'm not saying anything crazy, but there are some names. There's some names we got to talk about. 3 of which are wide receiver prospects. There's a couple of big names surrounding K-State, with potential of visits, with potential of commitment, with potential of whatever. There's 3 dudes that have loosely been linked to K-State in different ways. I don't want to look in and say how likely each of them is, but I will give you my thoughts on each player and what the situation is. Starting off with former Penn State / Kent State wide receiver, Dante Cephas. Now, Cephas is a dude. I talked about it on Twitter. I've showed some videos on Twitter. The dude runs routes great. He's a talented receiver. And the little tie-in we have to talk about, and I'll read you his stats and all the stuff about him here in a second. The little tie-in, his former wide receiver coach, one of the coaches that helped him to his 2 best seasons that happened back-to-back at Kent State, Matthew Middleton, the wide receiver coach at Kansas State, a hire from last year on Chris Klieman's staff. So Cephas goes through 5 years of college football. First 2 seasons at Kent State, nothing too crazy. His junior year in 2021, massive year for Kent State. 82 grabs, 1,240 yards, and 9 touchdowns for Kent State. Follows that up as a senior with 48 grabs for 744 and 3 scores in that. The dude has had over 2,000 yards receiving multiple times in his career. He ends up transferring to Penn State for last season for a season of eligibility. 22 grabs, 246 yards, 2 scores. Don't let the drop in production concern you. Penn State was not a great passing team. Plus, it's a different coaching staff. You're coming in from, MAC football to Power 5 football. There's definitely a step up, but this dude is capable of it all. The 6-foot senior from Pennsylvania, he's 187 pounds. He is a bad man. The dude has some ability on the outside. I shared a clip on my Twitter where the dude's running about a 15-yard post, comes in, makes contact, catches the rock, makes contact with the defender, and the defender's helmet pops off like a Rock'em Sock'em robot. That's crazy. Cuts up fields, goes for a touchdown. Dante Cephas is a stud. If you could get this dude out there, he's a massive addition. And it's been reported by multiple people already. He's in town. Fun fact, he is in town at Kansas State on campus. So On3 covered it first, and it's a massive story, especially considering Jabri Barber did commit to Texas A&M. I believe he had a visit with K-State. Don't know if it happened, if it was an in-house thing or on campus, but K-State wasn't able to get the job done. He goes to join Colin Klein at Texas A&M. Obviously more than just Colin Klein, but for K-State fans, Klein at A&M. So you had a couple of different stories coming out about different receivers coming to K-State. Dante Cephas is your first guy we have to talk about. He's a stud. He'd be a problem in Manhattan with Avery Johnson on the outside. And I will continue to paint that picture for you here as we go along. Next player up, Malik Benson. You've heard the name. You more than likely have heard the name. If you haven't, let me clue you in. A former Alabama receiver who spent 2 seasons at Hutchinson Community College. Benson with Alabama this season ended up transferring after the year. He's a big body. He's a talented guy. 13 grabs, 162 yards, and a touchdown. Never really had the opportunity some of the other 5-star receivers with Alabama did. He did to an extent, but they kind of used him down the stretch as more of a blocking guy, even though he's one of their best athletes out there. Malik Benson, the 6'1" junior from Lansing, Kansas, spent 2 years at JUCO and was the number 1 player in the entire JUCO transfer portal, 4-star receiver committed to Alabama. Number 1 player in his class, number 1 receiver in his class, number 1 player in the state of Kansas. The Kansas native has already gotten offers from everybody. Everybody wants this kid. Also, he's an Alabama prospect. Alabama, it's Alabama. Enough said. The first time around, it sounded like there was some real interest from K-State. Obviously, why wouldn't there be? But just couldn't get it done. I know there was a couple of local teams pursuing him, but let's look at his team list just to paint the picture here. Let me read you his offer list coming out of Hutchinson Community College. Starting off at the top, we'll go there. Alabama, that's where he committed. Georgia, which he visited. LSU, which he visited. Oregon, which he visited. Tennessee, which he visited. The other offers might include Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor, Florida, Florida State, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Miami, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Penn State, South Alabama, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas Tech, UAB, and West Virginia. The dude had offers from everybody. Everybody wanted this dude. Everybody went after him. One way or another, it didn't work out. He ended up in Alabama with Nick Sabin, considering it's Nick Sabin in Alabama. Will it work out? I'm not sure, because I do know that he's currently wrapped up with both Florida State and Florida. Those are the 2 teams that are kind of fighting for us, or fighting with us for him. I don't know how much it's all set in stone or who's doing what, but there's going to be NIL money thrown at the kid. There's going to be a lot of opportunity thrown at the kid. The only appeal I would say that K-State has, obviously you have Chris Klieman. Hell of a coach, hell of a staff. Matthew Middleton is a dude that's electric, a great receiver coach. But you probably want to get closer to home, is my guess. A lot of guys do that where, like, Kansas isn't really I forget what the exact word is, where it's kind of a bounce-off state. Like, UCF's a great example of this. A lot of teams will go to Texas, Alabama, whatever, and they'll come from that Orlando pipeline. They'll go, it won't work out. Let me go back to home. Orlando, UCF's right up the road. Let's go. Kansas doesn't really have that. We're not really a huge recruiting hub. In this case, this is a perfect example of that. So I'm hoping that we can get enough done for Malik Benson to come to Kansas State. Will it work out? I'm not sure. But picture the fact that Kansas State could trot out there in the fall. You have Malik Benson on one side, stud 6'1", 195-pound receiver getting out there, getting after it. Dude's an elite threat everywhere he wants to be. Opposite side there, you toss in my boy Dante Cephas. Another stud, another guy that's capable of creating separation, getting after it. And in the slot, you have Jace Brown, a dude who is, we all know how good Jace Brown is. I don't need to rave about Jace Brown, but listen to that receiver room. Then you have Keegan Johnson coming in as a rotation guy. You have a couple other people coming in that could affect it. That's huge to see. So something to keep in mind. I know there are some other people out there that have been linked to K-State. I don't know how serious we're seeing, but there's actually another Alabama prospect that I did hear about as a potential visit to K-State. I don't know how serious this is. Let me read you the report because, once again, I'm not entirely sure. I hope I'm saying this right because I definitely could be butchering it and saying it wrong. Shaz Preston from Alabama. I saw a tweet from a guy named Tom. He covers Tulane, talking about different commits. Tulane just got a commitment from Oregon transfer Ty Thompson. Huge commitment. Big for Tulane. The Tulane staff also has former 5-star receiver Shaz Preston visiting today. And in the back sentence, this is what piqued my interest. Preston also has a visit scheduled with Kansas State so far. I know that's vague. I know that's not much to go off of, but a visit from an Alabama kid in Manhattan. I just want to say how impressed I've been by how much work Matthew Middleton's doing. I know he's developed guys in the NFL players. I know he's had some next play ability, but this has been a big offseason for Middleton. Now that he's got his full year under his belt and he can kind of rebuild his staff through his guy, his core through his guys. Obviously, Jace Brown's the guy. I would like to think that Keegan Johnson is a big bounce back year, but there's a possibility of adding more guys in the portal that are talented dudes. Now, Preston did not play as a freshman for Alabama. Didn't play much, didn't get many looks, but coming out of high school, he was the dude. Obviously, you're going to have to be the dude to an extent if you're going to Alabama. Top 60 player in the nation. He was the 56th ranked player in his class, the 8th ranked receiver in his class, and the 5th ranked player in the state of Louisiana. Another dude where if K-State could land him, that's huge. You bring me a team that looks like this from left to right. You've got Dante Cephas on the outside over there. You bring in the slot Jace Brown here. Line up whatever side you want, Garrett Oakley at tight end. I'm just going skill positions here. I don't want to neglect the O-line, but I'm going skill positions. DJ Giddens behind you in the backfield. And then on the opposite side, you've got my boy Malik Benson. I'm not saying Preston will or will not come to K-State, but in my mind, from what I've heard, there's more interest as of right now, just because it's kind of a generic quote, so I don't know how much to go off of, but you line up that squad, that's a Big 12 team, that's a college football playoff team. If you rebuild the defense, you allocate some guys on the defensive side of the ball, that is huge. And I know that Chris Kleiman is a big, promote from within, trust the guys, get them ready. These are dudes that affect your team right now, and they are ready. If you can get these wins in, that's huge. Doesn't matter how many guys of these three you get. If you get any of them, that's massive. If Chris Kleiman can pull this off, you're a massive, massive winner for this one. This is a huge win. You win it over a bunch of teams that want these guys. And if you can bring that in, that brings in so much success immediately for Avery Johnson and does put K-State in that next category of a college football playoff team. That's a likelihood with these guys bringing in. So could it happen without him? Yes, I know it could. I'm just saying there's going to be a lot to follow these next weeks here talking about Kansas State. So I just wanted to update you guys there. I don't know all there is. I know there's a lot of people that know a lot more. Both KSO and Go PowerCat have done a great job. So if you're subscribed to that, go check out either of those. They've done good jobs talking about all the guys that might be in Manhattan, what's going to happen next. So be sure to follow along with recruitment over there. But guys, just in my case, I just wanted to talk to you about how stoked I am about the possibility of rebuilding the receiver core with some big dogs, man. That's what we want to see. And I'm excited to keep you guys updated here the next week or so as these things kind of wind down and the portal closes semi-soon, but there's always going to be a little bit more. There's going to be more noise on the horizon, so I'm excited to see where we're at right now. Engaging these conversations, will it work out? I'm not sure, but I do hope so, and I believe it's possible and we can get the job done. Guys, I appreciate each and every one of you watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll be back home here probably by the next video, and I'll be back in the studio, so I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I will talk to you here soon. Go Cats!